This speaker has been recorded at a meeting of Addictive Eaters Anonymous. For more information, visit our website www.aeainfo.org.
I'm Esther. I'm an addictive eater. I did just pick this book out before I started, and I just found one sentence that I really liked. It says, "We know that permanent sobriety can be attained only by a most revolutionary change in the life and outlook of the individual, by a spiritual awakening that can banish the desire to drink." I was hanging out the washing yesterday, I think it was, and I was thinking about something. Just made me think about how long I've known my sponsor for, and she 12-stepped me before I came to this fellowship. And then I thought about, wow, she's been sober all this time. And I didn't think that about myself because it took me 7 years of coming to have that experience that it talks about. But it was just one of those moments where I just thought, wow, this really works. So for me to get to that spiritual awakening, I just had to get smashed. And yeah, it took a long time of thinking that sobriety was something I could get for myself. And I got nowhere that way. On the surface, I could fool myself that I was on the same road as everyone else. But in my heart, I knew it, because if ever the topic of the meeting was surrender, I knew that I didn't have that in my heart, and I found it really difficult to share on that topic. And I remember just having conversations with people, doubting that I had. And when I finally did surrender, there wasn't any doubt anymore. It was this moment where I knew that no matter what I did, I wasn't going to be able to get sober. I wasn't going to be able to be sober. Like this fellowship that we're in talks about 100% sobriety, from all mind and mood altering substances, and I knew I couldn't do that. And at that moment as well, I just knew it wasn't going to work. But at the same time, I did pray for one day sober off everything, without having any kind of belief that was going to happen for me. The change that happened, that I didn't know at that point something had changed, but there was a difference in my attitude. There were probably a few things I noticed. One was that when somebody suggested something to me, I had this total willingness to do it, which hadn't been there before. And the other thing was, I was prepared to go to extreme lengths to not pick up the first one. And those were probably the two changes that I did notice. And because I was pretty mad at the time, I did some very strange things trying to do both those, trying to do God's will and trying to not pick up the first one. I did some very odd things, but it kind of didn't matter, because in my heart, I was doing it from the right motivation, and gradually I became a little bit more sane. I just got a bit more common sense, I think. I'm sorry I'm being a little bit vague, but I'll just give you one example. So I worked in a government department, and all the government departments are roughly in the same area, but sometimes there's some kind of at one end and some at the other. And in those days, it was before online meetings that we do all the time now. So we often used to have to go to these different meetings, and because the final part of my addictive eating that was removed was exercise, and so I didn't think I could walk from one meeting to another for work. So I would get a taxi, because I didn't trust myself, basically, that I was doing it for the right reasons, and even though I was actually doing it for my job. So I used to get in a taxi. And my poor boss, because my boss at the time, who is actually my boss now, is blind, and so he needed to come with me, so he'd get in the taxi with me, and we'd go a few blocks and then get out. So it was mad, but I don't know, at that time that was what I needed to do. And today I don't, if I need to go to a meeting for work, I don't have to get in a taxi, but I know that I'm still very aware of my motives, and I talk about that with my sponsor. And I guess the thing about a spiritual awakening that I've found is it is ongoing. It's not something that I do once and that is done and finished. It's like an ongoing process. And so I'm constantly becoming aware of things in myself that I believe is the disease in my thinking. And I'm constantly getting messages, whether it's from a meeting or it's from meditation or it's from a spiritual reading or even something from outside the program. I'll get a message and then I'll realise that something else needs to change. It's probably the thing that's been most obvious at the moment has been work. So my work involves herding quite a few cats, it feels like sometimes. So you've got very different points of view sitting around a table having to come to an agreement about something. And I can get so annoyed when people don't see what I can see, which I think is right, and that this is the way it should be, and why can't everyone else see that? So just recently, someone said something to me that was quite helpful, and she wasn't even in the program, but she said, can you look at that process of people disagreeing and there being lots of feedback, and can you just see that as part of the work? It's not an interruption, it's just part of what you do for a job. And that's really helped, just to accept that we're not all going to have the same point of view, and I'm probably not right, even though I think I am. There probably is no one right, and so that's just been quite helpful to have a lot more acceptance and just get on with my job and not get that emotional reaction, which for me just takes me into my disease. And another thing I've heard in here is about people who can just be quite factual and just stick to the facts. And I aspire to be like that. I don't think I'm there yet. You know, just to not get into my opinion and what I think and whether I think this is good or bad, but it just is. And just stick with the facts, it is safe. So I think it's just been such a beautiful day. And it was so nice to come from Wellington where it was quite windy and I'm probably wearing too many clothes. So as soon as I stepped out of the airport, it was so warm and lovely. And it just feels like my life goes on pause. I come here and I know I'm going to be surrounded by recovery, and it's the best place I can be. So thank you.